Today is Tuesday, October 4th, and we're taking things one day at a time here on the Outside the Oval podcast, the newest running experience on the internet. On today's show, I'm once again going to do my best to break down everything that has happened over this long weekend of racing, including results from the Paul Short Run in Lehigh, Joe Pine Invitational in Notre Dame, and the Live at the Lou Classic in Louisville, among various other meets that we may break down over the course of today's show. But as always, we're going to jump right into things today by first taking a look at the quickest meet of the year in Pennsylvania at the Paul Short Run hosted by Lehigh. To recap things real quickly, Parker Wolf from North Carolina took home the win, running a shocking 23:02, and he's quickly followed by his teammate Patrick Anderson, who came in just behind Wolf running 23:04. This 1-2 punch was enough to give the Tar Heels a victory, taking down ranked squads such as Villanova, Utah State, and Georgetown. And this race really seemed to set the tone for the entire weekend of racing, as 93 guys dipped under 24 minutes, whereas just 5 years ago, in 2017, only 19 guys were able to get under this mark. So this created a lot of dialogue over the weekend, especially throughout Twitter, not only about the legitimacy of the course, but also kind of stirred up a much larger debate that we'll touch on real quickly. And that is if it's necessary to be timing these cross-country races every week. Now, I do understand the argument for abolishing clock timing during a cross-country race. Our sport is essentially one gigantic race at the end of the season, and the winner's crowned champion regardless of the time they run. There's no time qualifiers to the national championships either. You got to go out there, you got to go top 5 at your regional meet in order to make it to the national meet, to run for that national championship. And yeah, every course is different, but if we abolish timing as a whole, there would be no measuring stick. You wouldn't be able to compare yourself to someone at a different race. Now, I know what you're saying. Look, there's different courses, but I think for the most part, everybody knows what courses are fast and which ones are slow. So, for example, Bob Liking last week at the Roy Griak, he went 24:10s. And we understand that Minnesota's home course is historically slow, and it's much more difficult than Paul Short. So if we do know this is the case, and we already know which courses run faster than others, why does it matter if we're timing these races? I'm in the opinion that in cross country, your finish is much more important than your time, regardless of what race it is. Whether that's a lousy preseason 5K or 6K, a midseason 8K, pre-nationals, whatever it is, I'm in the opinion that timing should not be abolished from our sport. And by doing this, it'll only get so far. In all realities, clock timing is here to stay, and it'll be the measurement of every distance race for the foreseeable future, and I really don't see any way around that. I think that's a good thing. But real quickly, before we move on, elsewhere in the men's gold race at Paul Short, I thought Villanova had a very good day. They put their entire top 4 in the top 10 of the race without Haftu Strentzos, and whether he was available or not, maybe he was injured, it remains to be seen. But this kind of result is one we should not overlook. I like what we have seen this year out of Villanova so far. I really do believe this is a team that will be mixing it up, and they'll be fighting for a top spot at nationals somewhere between 10 and 20. They're not necessarily one of those top 10 teams quite yet, but they definitely have separated from a team fighting for a spot to get the nationals to now they look like a mid-card team, kind of like an Arkansas prototype that we've seen in the past. Really like what we've seen out of Villanova this year. Looking forward to seeing them race in Stillwater this November. On the women's side, Everlyn Kemboy from Utah Valley ran to a victory following her impressive performance the week before at the Cowboy Jamboree. Kemboy ran away with this race late, edging out several top runners in the country, including big names such as Bryn Brown from North Carolina, who finished 6th, and Grace Forbes from Rice, who finished 9th. At first glance, I was very surprised to find Forbes so far down the result sheet. She came up 12 seconds short of Kemboy, despite coming through the 2-mile mark in the front of the lead pack. By many, Forbes was believed to be a true contender at the national meet this season, including my dad, who believed she would be right there next to Natalie Cook at the top of the NCAA this season. And although Forbes did come up short in her first race against true competition this season, she should still be seen as one of the sport's best distance runners, and I would not be surprised come November that we're once again talking about Grace Forbes as a top 10 finisher at the national meet. North Carolina would complete the sweep at Paul Shore, also narrowly taking home the women's championship against a stifling Georgetown squad that put up the third, fourth, and fifth finishers on Friday. Around the same time, up in Indiana, at the Joe Pine Invitational, Notre Dame defended their home course against their former head coach, Coach Carlson, and 10K national championship runner Dylan Jacobs, who both fled to Notre Dame, this offseason to go to Tennessee. And ultimately, it was the Notre Dame Fighting Irish who would get the win over Rocky Top. And in fact, Tennessee still would go on to have a great day, finishing second, beating Alabama, their SEC and South regional foe. And that would be the top three for the Joe Pine Invitational. Victor Kiprop won his second straight race, the first coming at the UNA Showcase 2 weeks ago, bolstering his impressive start to the new season. Behind Kiprop, Nicholas Scudder from Charlotte had a great day, finishing second, and Elliot Kipsang, Kiprop's teammate, rounded out the top three, while Hillary Chariot finished sixth, giving the Crimson Tide an impressive 1-3 punch. The remaining 4 through 7 runners for Alabama went out fast this weekend, as detailed by Brady Grant, who finished 74th at this race on Friday. I was fortunate enough to talk to Brady for a few minutes, and this is what he had to say about this weekend's race. I am now here with Brady Grant of Alabama, who's coming off a big day at the Joe Pine Invitational, where he went 24-29 and helped Alabama secure a third-place finish this weekend. Brady, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on. I'm stoked about it.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you on the show. And could you tell me a little bit about this Friday's race and how it went?
So overall, went pretty well for us. Obviously, Victor got the dub, which was awesome. His second one on the year, so that was a lot of fun. Eliud closed really well, and Hillary ran well. It was nice having Jacob Wiggers back on the course, and he stepped up big for us. And also Jacob Harris, he was also one that stepped up for us and helped us get that third place finish. So it was a lot of fun.
For sure, and this was a big test for you guys, running against teams you'll see later down the road, such as Tennessee and hopefully Notre Dame at the national level. So how do you think this race prepares you for races such as SECs, regionals, and even nationals in a few weeks?
Yeah, it was a great measuring stick for us. It really showed us kind of where we're at this midway point in the season, which is really big for us because it tells us what we need to work on. I mean, as a team, we learned a lot about ourselves and kind of who we are. I think at this point in the season and what we need to work on to get better for SECs and nationals, hopefully, and everything like that. So it was a really good measuring stick for us because we got to run against some really good teams in Tennessee, Notre Dame, Montana State. I mean, just a really, really great meet. So it was really great for us just to see where we're at and what we need to work on.
And with a few weeks until the postseason, what's your team training going into these next few weeks? You did mention that you're looking forward to these upcoming weeks of training before we started talking, and now that we kind of got to learn, like you mentioned, you kind of get to learn a lot about your team entering this week. So what's the training going to be like in order to accomplish what you want to do?
Yeah, we're definitely leaving Notre Dame very hungry and ready to go back to work was kind of our mentality after the meet. Like directly after, it was like we're kind of like let's go, like let's get back to work. We're ready to start rolling again. So it's really just it's going to be a difficult couple of weeks. These next couple of weeks, just training wise, just we're going to be trying to get. The goal is to win SECs. Obviously, we were picked in preseason to win it, but we don't really listen too much to that noise and just kind of focus on the team and what we can control, and which is really just getting 1% better every single day. That's something that we've harped on. So these next 4 weeks is really just getting 1% better every single day. That's the mentality, and doing what we can do just to make ourselves the best we can be on SECs, because really just that meet is everyone having a good day on the same day. I mean, it's a really tough conference. It's really tough meet to win, and it's really just about having having your best day on the same day. So just these next few weeks is just about getting to that point and getting ourselves in really good shape and ready to roll.
For sure, and that's with considering Friday's loss to Tennessee, your team may move off that top spot in the South regional rankings, but like you did mention, kind of keeping out the noise, which is a good thing, focusing on every day, every practice. But it would seem like you guys are still in the driver's seat when it comes to making it out of the South regional. So moving forward, what are some goals your team has, as well as yourself entering the month of October?
Yeah, I'll say big team goal that we've kind of all adapted is the getting the 1% better every single day and just running for each other every chance we get when it comes to meets. And the goal is to win SECs, but really it's just to, run our best every single meet. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, we just got to control what we can control. And we understand that, like, we can't run we can't run the race for the other teams. We don't know how they're going to do. We just got to do what, we know best, which is just doing it the Alabama way and just running together, running for each other, and trying to get as close, our 4 and 5 as close to our top 3. Obviously, that's a big goal of ours. It's just trying to work closer and closer and close that separation between us and the Kenyans.
Absolutely. And Brady, it's been great having you on the show today. I'm looking forward to the rest of your season. And for all my friends back home with your hat and everything, go Browns.
Go Browns.
Again, it was really awesome having Brady hop on the show this week, and I really appreciate him taking the time to do so. But looking elsewhere, Yassine Abdallah was the first finisher for Tennessee on Friday. Abdallah edged out Dylan Jacobs, finishing 4th to Jacobs' 8th. And once this Tennessee squad gets moving, I think they're really going to end up being the undisputed favorites to win the SEC championship, as well as the South Regional next month. Similar to Paul Short, there was no shortage of impressive races in Notre Dame this weekend, and the excitement on the men's side was nothing compared to the women's side, whose race really stole the show across the NCAA this weekend. All off season, I have been in the belief that Mercy Chelangat of Alabama was the woman to beat in the NCAA. But Caitlin Toohey laid that thought to rest this weekend as she put no doubt into the minds of many as to who the championship favorite is this season, crushing it at a 5:05 mile average, which is unheard of on this course, I feel like. Toohey housed Chelangat by 12 seconds, winning the Joe Pine Invitational and leading the NC State Wolfpack to a 13-point victory over the likes of New Mexico and Alabama, who finished just 2 points behind New Mexico. New Mexico was jumped by Oklahoma State this past week in the USTFCCA coaches poll following the Pokes' impressive win at the Cowboy Jamboree, but I do think the Lobos did enough, and probably more than enough, to convince voters they are the second best team in the nation. For the most part, they were able to come within 13 points without a true low stick. Emma Heckel, who I believe is slowly on her way to becoming that low stick, was only the Lobos' 4th finisher, and she finished 16th on Friday during this race. And New Mexico also brought in all 7 runners before NC State's 5th. And I believe that in a deeper field, New Mexico could very well put the upset on NC State and end up knocking off the team we all thought that was untouchable at the beginning of the season. Elsewhere, the Chili Pepper Invitational also took place on Friday. And to quickly recap things, Arkansas' top squad cruised to 2 easy victories on the men and women's side. Patrick Hipperop would end up making his season debut for the Razorbacks, finishing 2nd, but Emmanuel Chesenbaum still has yet to race in 2022, which makes me believe that he is either, 1, out of eligibility, considering everything that's happened with the COVID eligibility rule. Would not be surprised if this is the case. But number 2, he could also be dealing with an injury, which is 2 things Arkansas would rather not have to deal with right now. And on the women's side, Isabel Van Camp continued her hot streak, winning the race alongside her former teammate Lauren Gregory, who competed as an unattached athlete and looked incredibly composed as she came through the finish. And considering how this women's Razorback squad has looked so far this season, they really could have used Gregory this season, who surely would have been a contender come November. And as thrilling as Friday was, Saturday showed so much promise as well, with the growing Live in the Lou meet once again main eventing the day. On the men's side, Division II teams Grand Valley State and Lee finished first and second in the gold race, beating out Miami, Ohio, Cincinnati, and Eastern Michigan, really taking it to those mid-tier Great Lake regional teams. Tanner Chada from Grand Valley State would pull off the win in the men's gold race, with Ryan Kenine from Auburn building on his impressive start to the season, finishing second and dipping down to a 23-21. Really think Ryan's having a great start to his season, and I really think this is helping Auburn have a low stick as we go out throughout the season. On the women's side, Furman led the way with Bethany Graham's second-place finish being enough to take down West Virginia 44-92. West Virginia's Sally McCabe, however, would go on to win the race by 16 seconds, giving the West Virginia women's team a boost, but not enough to pull off the upset over Furman. And in fact, it was far from it. It was a 48-point loss. And now, I announced last week I was planning on releasing my updated individual and team rankings for both men and women on social media. But for those listening today, I will quickly break down my top three in all four categories. And like I said, this past week and the week before, the Cowboy Jamboree, they have provided us with a lot of action and things to take note of. Most notably, I think Caitlin Tuohy's statement victory, Natalie Cook's victory, and Tennessee's impressive debut are all three things that really should not be taken with a grain of salt. Instead, we should be taking a look at this and being like, okay, this is what we need to expect moving forward. So we'll start with the women's individual rankings, where I do have Caitlin Tuohy number one, where I also have Natalie Cook coming in at number two. And behind her, I have Mercy Chalenga at three. And as I've already addressed in today's episode, there's no way you can put anyone else at number one other than Caitlin Tuohy. She has dominated the only other runner the media expected could prevent her from winning that individual title this year, and she has firmly cemented herself as this season's championship favorite. But more interestingly, I think Cook coming at number two for me is probably going to be the headline of this kind of section of the show. And it's really not necessarily that I believe that she's better than Chalenga right now, but instead, because of the potential Cook has left, I think she deserves a number two spot a little bit more than Chalenga. Unfortunately, Oklahoma State is not going to Nuttycombe in 2 weeks, so we'll probably be asking the same questions that we're asking about Natalie Cook now in 5 or 6 weeks. But I do believe in Cook. I believe in the way she trains, and simply put, she's one of our sport's rarest talents. Moving forward, she's going to be someone we have to watch, and I would not be surprised to see her take down Tuohy in Stillwater. And that's a hot take, but at the same time, I really do think Cook is capable of doing it, and that's why I have her at two, slotted ahead of Chalenga. On the team side, however, I, of course, have NC State coming in at number one, followed by New Mexico at number two, despite their head-to-head victory this weekend, head-to-head loss to NC State this weekend. And lastly, in third, I have Oklahoma State at number three. The Oklahoma State team, though, is super intriguing. I spoke highly of them this preseason while discussing the Midwest Regional, and did so after the Cowboy Jamboree as well. Cook and Rowe, they're probably the most lethal duo in the country right now, and they could very well be the biggest X factor in this 2022 women's team battle. But for now, I do like the Wolfpack, and I still believe New Mexico has a lot more left in the tank, and they are definitely going to be NC State's biggest threat in pursuit of their second straight national championship. And then taking things to the men's side real quick, I argued last week you could make an argument against Alex Mayer. That's not the case. We've seen plenty of runners go out there. Parker Wolf is a great example. He went out there, ran the fastest time in the country so far, but that wasn't against the competition that Alex Mayer did it in. He took down people like Charles Hicks, Nico Young, Casey Cleaner. These are guys that we were expecting to be championship favorites, and Alex Mayer went out there and said, you know what, I'm not being talked about enough. I'm going to go out there and prove it. And Alex Mayer is now my number one. And I hold that same opinion that I did last week, ranking him first, followed by Charles Hicks, number two, and Victor Shitsama, number three. And if you can't tell, head-to-head matchups are very important for me. And although I was hesitant to rank Shitsama third, considering the fact he did not enter the season as someone we all believed was not capable of winning an individual title, he has proved in the deepest race of this season he is more than capable of mixing it up with those the best guys I just mentioned. Cole Sprout, Nico Young, Casey Cleaner. He took them all down 2 weeks ago at the Cowboy Jamboree. And as I have preached many times this year, the men's individual championship is still wide open. It is anyone's race to lose, and absolutely anyone is capable of winning in one of those first one or two tiers and winning it all this year in November at Stillwater. And I'm really looking forward to that bout. And lastly, as we talked about last week, the men's team championship was mixed up by the results of the Cowboy Jamboree as well. First, I have a new number one, but rather than BYU, I like Stanford as the new favorite. Without Kai Robinson, Thomas Boyden stepped up in a big way last weekend and finished 14th in a really crowded field. But now I will admit the 5 spot is a little bit of a mystery, a little bit shaky, but there are still 2, 3, maybe even 4 guys on that Stanford lineup who are really going to be competing for that 5th spot and kind of be competing to be on that national championship team. So I really like what Stanford has going. Behind them, I do have BYU, the champions of the Cowboy Jamboree just a week ago. I loved seeing Joey Noakes step up and finishing 10th last week. He really adds an interesting component to this team, this front three of Casey Cleaner, Christian Allen, and now Joey Noakes. And third, I have NAU, who sits there from their debut in my preseason rankings. And dropping out of the top 3 is my preseason champion, Oklahoma State. They fell from 1st to 4th, which was difficult for me to do considering how high I was on them. And although I still believe in this team, and I still do believe this team is capable of winning the championship in November, the Cowboys still have many questions surrounding them, such as Shea Foster. He might be out for the entire season, as well as their depth that struggled mightily at the Cowboy Jamboree. So for now, I do like NAU, who should return Brody Hasty soon as well, and slightly more than Oklahoma State. But if this sport has shown us anything so far this season, anything can happen, and it could really turn this season upside down completely. And that is where I will end today's show. As always, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate each and everybody's support. If you have not already, please, I ask you to go give my show a rating and a review on whatever platform you listen to it on. And with that, I will catch you guys next time on Outside the Oval.